From lazy Oxford student to history's most famous physicist, discover how Stephen Hawking defied a terminal diagnosis to revolutionize our understanding of black holes, time, and the universe itself. This is the ultimate story proving that the human mind knows no physical boundaries when driven by pure curiosity.
Narrative: Stephen Hawking, the mind that conquered the universe. In a cramped student dormitory at Oxford University, a brilliant but lazy undergraduate named Stephen sat staring at physics problems he could solve in minutes while his classmates struggled for hours. Completely unaware that within 2 years a devastating neurological disease would begin destroying his body while paradoxically liberating his mind to explore the deepest mysteries of black holes, time, and the very nature of existence itself. This wasn't just any academically gifted young man coasting through university. This was Stephen William Hawking, whose journey from indifferent student to the world's most famous scientist would prove that the human spirit can transcend any physical limitation when driven by insatiable curiosity about how the universe actually works. Born on January 8, 1942, in Oxford, England, exactly 300 years after Galileo's death, as he would later delight in telling people, Stephen entered a world at war where his parents had fled London's bombing to ensure their first child would be born in safety. His birth during World War II's darkest period meant his earliest years were shaped by rationing, blackouts, and the constant uncertainty that characterized wartime Britain, creating an environment where intellectual pursuits provided escape from harsh realities while also demonstrating humanity's capacity for both destruction and transcendent achievement. His father, Frank Hawking, was a medical researcher specializing in tropical diseases, whose scientific career had taken him from Yorkshire farming routes to Oxford University and eventually to prestigious research positions that required lengthy expeditions to Africa. Frank's dedication to scientific research, combined with his somewhat eccentric personality and his belief that intellectual achievement was more valuable than social conformity, provided Stephen with early exposure to the idea that science was both noble calling and exciting adventure. His mother, Isabel Hawking, was equally intellectual, having studied philosophy, politics, and economics at Oxford during the 1930s when few women pursued higher education. Her sharp intelligence, political awareness, and determination to ensure her children received excellent educations despite the family's modest financial circumstances created a household where learning was valued above all else and where questioning authority was not just permitted but encouraged. The Hawking family's reputation for eccentricity in their St. Albans neighborhood was legendary. They read books at dinner, drove a converted London taxi because it was more practical than a conventional car, and maintained a greenhouse where they grew fireworks rather than flowers. This atmosphere of intellectual nonconformity taught Stephen that being different wasn't something to apologize for but rather a sign that you were thinking independently and pursuing truth regardless of social expectations. His early education at St. Albans School was marked by academic brilliance combined with a casual attitude toward studying that frustrated teachers who recognized his extraordinary potential but couldn't motivate him to apply himself consistently. Stephen's approach to learning was to understand underlying principles rather than memorize facts, allowing him to solve complex problems through intuition and creativity rather than conventional methods, a skill that would later revolutionize theoretical physics. The nickname Einstein that his classmates gave him was initially mocking rather than admiring, as his absent-minded professor behavior and disheveled appearance made him seem like a caricature of the brilliant but impractical scientist. However, this early identification with Einstein proved prophetic, as Stephen would later follow Einstein's path of using thought experiments and mathematical elegance to unlock fundamental secrets about space, time, and gravity. His decision to study physics at Oxford University was motivated partly by his desire to understand how things really worked and partly by his father's disappointment that Stephen wasn't interested in following him into medical research. The compromise of studying natural sciences allowed Stephen to explore his interests while maintaining family harmony, though his real passion was already gravitating toward the most fundamental questions about the nature of reality itself. Oxford in the early 1960s was still largely dominated by social class distinctions and traditional teaching methods that emphasized classical education over cutting-edge research. Stephen's working-class background and his indifference to social conventions made him something of an outsider, but his obvious intellectual gifts and his ability to solve problems that baffled his tutors gradually earned him recognition as someone truly exceptional. His undergraduate thesis on cosmology, completed with characteristic last-minute intensity, demonstrated his ability to tackle the biggest questions in physics while also revealing his natural inclination toward problems that seemed impossible to solve through conventional approaches. His tutor's assessment that Stephen was clearly brighter than himself marked the beginning of recognition that this unconventional student possessed truly extraordinary capabilities. The transition to graduate studies at Cambridge University in 1962 should have marked the beginning of a brilliant academic career, but Stephen's initial experience was marked by uncertainty about his research direction and growing awareness that something was physically wrong with his coordination and speech. His supervisor Dennis Sayama recognized Stephen's potential but also noticed the subtle signs of physical deterioration that would soon transform everything. The diagnosis of motor neuron disease, ALS, in 1963, when Stephen was just 21 years old, came with a prognosis of 2 years to live, creating an existential crisis that initially sent him into depression and despair. The realization that his body was beginning to fail just as his intellectual career was starting seemed like a cosmic joke of the cruelest kind, raising fundamental questions about meaning, purpose, and whether there was any point in pursuing long-term goals when time was so limited. His engagement to Jane Wilde during this period represented both a triumph of hope over despair and the beginning of a partnership that would sustain him through the most challenging years of his life. Jane's decision to marry someone with a terminal diagnosis demonstrated extraordinary courage and love, while her own academic interests in medieval literature provided Stephen with emotional support and intellectual companionship that proved crucial to his survival and success. The wedding in 1965, 2 years after his diagnosis and well past the timeframe doctors had predicted for his survival, marked Stephen's first major victory over the disease that was supposed to have killed him. The ceremony represented not just personal happiness but also his decision to live as fully as possible regardless of physical limitations, setting a pattern of refusing to be defined or constrained by his medical condition. His early research into cosmology and general relativity began during this period of personal crisis and uncertainty, as if confronting his own mortality had focused his mind on the largest possible questions about the nature of existence itself. His work on singularities and the beginning of the universe required him to think beyond conventional assumptions about space and time, skills that his unique life circumstances had forced him to develop in purely personal contexts. The birth of his children, Robert in 1967, Lucy in 1970, and Timothy in 1979, provided Stephen with profound motivation to continue living and working despite his progressing disability. Fatherhood gave him responsibilities and joys that transcended his scientific achievements while also demonstrating that he could have a normal family life even as his physical condition continued deteriorating. His collaboration with Roger Penrose on theorems proving that general relativity predicted the existence of singularities represented his first major contribution to theoretical physics while establishing his reputation among the international community of researchers working on the most fundamental problems in cosmology. These mathematical proofs demonstrated that the universe itself began with a singularity, providing scientific foundation for understanding the Big Bang. The development of his work on black holes during the early 1970s emerged from his fascination with these mysterious objects where gravity becomes so strong that nothing, not even light, can escape. His application of quantum mechanics to black hole physics led to discoveries that revolutionized understanding of these cosmic phenomena while also raising profound questions about the nature of information, entropy, and the fundamental laws of physics. His prediction that black holes emit radiation, now known as Hawking radiation, represented one of the most startling discoveries in modern physics, demonstrating that these supposedly perfect absorbers of matter and energy actually slowly evaporate by emitting particles. This discovery unified quantum mechanics with general relativity in ways that had never been achieved before while also suggesting that black holes have temperature and entropy. The implications of Hawking radiation extended far beyond astronomy to fundamental questions about the nature of information and reality itself. If black holes can evaporate completely, what happens to the information that fell into them? This information paradox became one of the most important unsolved problems in physics, with implications for our understanding of quantum mechanics, gravity, and the basic structure of reality. His appointment to the Lucasian Professorship of Mathematics at Cambridge University in 1979, a position once held by Isaac Newton, represented recognition of his extraordinary contributions to theoretical physics while also acknowledging his unique ability to communicate complex ideas to broader audiences. The appointment came with minimal teaching responsibilities, allowing him to focus on research while his progressing disability made conventional academic duties increasingly difficult. The writing of A Brief History of Time during the 1980s represented Stephen's determination to explain the mysteries of the universe to general audiences without compromising scientific accuracy or talking down to readers. His belief that ordinary people could understand and appreciate the deepest questions about space, time, and existence drove him to create prose that was both accessible and profound. The publication of A Brief History of Time in 1988 transformed Stephen from respected academic into global celebrity, as the book spent 237 weeks on the Sunday Times bestseller list and sold over 25 million copies worldwide. The book's success demonstrated that there was enormous public appetite for understanding how the universe works, while also establishing Stephen as the world's most famous living scientist. The irony of Stephen's condition was that as his body became increasingly paralyzed, his mind seemed to become more powerful and creative, as if physical limitations had somehow liberated his intellectual capabilities from mundane concerns about daily survival. His ability to perform complex calculations entirely in his head, visualize multidimensional mathematical concepts, and develop revolutionary theories without conventional tools became legendary among his colleagues. His use of technology to overcome communication barriers transformed both his personal life and his public role, as computer-generated speech allowed him to continue lecturing, writing, and engaging with colleagues and students. The synthetic voice that became his trademark was initially frustrating but eventually became as recognizable as his scientific achievements, demonstrating how technology could extend human capabilities even in the face of severe physical disabilities. His appearances in popular culture, from The Simpsons to Star Trek, reflected his unique position as someone who had transcended academic boundaries to become a symbol of human intellectual achievement. His willingness to participate in these productions showed his understanding that science communication required reaching people through multiple media and cultural contexts. The end of his first marriage to Jane in the early 1990s represented a personal crisis that coincided with his growing international fame and the increasing complexity of managing his medical care. The breakdown of this relationship, which had sustained him through the most difficult years of his life, created emotional challenges that were complicated by his physical dependence and public visibility. His marriage to Elaine Mason, his former nurse, in 1995 represented an attempt to find new partnership and care arrangements, though this relationship would later become controversial and ultimately unsuccessful. The challenges of maintaining personal relationships while managing severe disability and international celebrity demonstrated that even extraordinary intellectual achievement couldn't solve all of life's fundamental problems. His continued research into quantum gravity, the theory of everything, and the nature of time represented his lifelong quest to understand the deepest principles governing reality. His work on the no-boundary proposal for the origin of the universe suggested that time itself might have emerged from quantum mechanical processes, eliminating the need for a beginning moment and raising profound questions about causation and existence. His public debates with other leading physicists, particularly his disagreement with Leonard Susskind about black hole information, demonstrated both his intellectual honesty and his willingness to change his mind when presented with compelling evidence. His eventual concession that information might not be destroyed in black holes showed that even revolutionary scientists must remain open to new ideas and alternative perspectives. The various honors and awards he received, including the Presidential Medal of Freedom and numerous honorary doctorates, recognized not just his scientific achievements but also his role as an inspiration to people facing seemingly insurmountable challenges. His example demonstrated that physical limitations need not prevent extraordinary intellectual achievement and that curiosity about fundamental questions could drive human accomplishment beyond any conventional boundaries. His later books, including The Universe in a Nutshell and The Grand Design, continued his mission of explaining complex scientific concepts to general audiences while also developing his ideas about the relationship between science and philosophy. His argument that philosophy was dead because scientists had become the ones asking the deepest questions about reality reflected his belief that empirical investigation had replaced purely theoretical speculation. His warnings about artificial intelligence, climate change, and the long-term survival of human civilization demonstrated his understanding that scientific knowledge carried social responsibilities and that scientists had obligations to speak out about threats to human welfare. His transformation from pure researcher to public intellectual reflected his growing awareness of science's role in addressing global challenges. His final years were marked by continued research productivity despite increasing physical frailty, as if his mind remained completely unaffected by the progressive paralysis that had consumed his body over 5 decades. His ability to continue making original contributions to physics while requiring total assistance for basic life functions represented perhaps the most extraordinary example of intellectual persistence in scientific history. His death on March 14, 2018, Einstein's birthday and Pi Day, provided a fitting end to a life dedicated to understanding the mathematical principles underlying reality. The coincidence of dates seemed to symbolize the connection between Stephen's work and the broader human quest to comprehend the universe through reason, observation, and mathematical analysis. The global outpouring of grief and celebration that followed his death demonstrated how completely he had transcended his original role as academic physicist to become a symbol of human curiosity, persistence, and the power of mind over matter. His funeral, attended by colleagues, students, and celebrities, reflected the unique position he had achieved as both serious scientist and popular culture icon. His scientific legacy encompasses not just specific discoveries about black holes and cosmology but also his contribution to the broader project of unifying quantum mechanics with general relativity. His work on the information paradox, Hawking radiation, and the no-boundary proposal continues influencing current research while also inspiring new generations of physicists to tackle the most fundamental questions about reality. The Stephen Hawking Foundation, established to support research into cosmology and motor neuron disease, ensures that his commitment to both scientific advancement and helping people with disabilities continues beyond his lifetime. The Foundation's work reflects his understanding that scientific achievement carries responsibilities to contribute to human welfare and social progress. Today, Stephen Hawking is remembered as the scientist who proved that the human mind can transcend any physical limitation when driven by genuine curiosity about how the universe works. His story demonstrates that intellectual achievement depends not on physical capabilities but on the willingness to ask fundamental questions and persist in seeking answers regardless of obstacles or conventional limitations. From the lazy Oxford undergraduate who almost failed his degree to the physicist who revolutionized our understanding of space and time, Stephen's journey proves that extraordinary circumstances can produce extraordinary achievements when combined with brilliant minds and unshakable determination to understand the deepest mysteries of existence itself.
Hawking proved that physical limitations cannot constrain intellectual achievement. His 55-year battle with ALS while revolutionizing physics shows that curiosity and determination can overcome any obstacle. Subscribe for more incredible science stories. Like if Stephen inspired you, share your favorite discovery.